Good afternoon and welcome to the September 29th, 2020 meeting of the Town Council Charter Review Committee. In accordance with Massachusetts general law, this meeting is being videotaped and audio recorded, as well as being remotely broadcasted via Zoom webinar. If there's anyone in our viewing audience who is taping this meeting, would you please announce yourself? Seeing none. First order of business, who would be so kind to take minutes?
I guess I will if no one wants. I'll take it.
All right, Phil, thank you. We have minutes for approval of September 22nd, 2020. Do I hear a motion to accept?
So moved.
Made by
Second.
Bill. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Andy. Any discussion? The only suggestion, and I wrote it on mine, at the bottom, submitted by Jeffrey Bosworth, with your permission.
Oh, yeah, okay. I forgot to put that in.
That's all right. I want to know who to blame later. Seeing no discussion, all those in approval, Bill Adams,
Yes.
Larry Levine, yes. William Fonseca,
Yes.
Andy Frazier,
Yes.
Jeffrey Bosworth,
Yes.
approved.
Jeannie has a question.
Yes, Jeannie.
I'll just add that into the document so I can upload it to the website. Is that okay for the minutes? Or does
Yes,
Jeff
ma'am.
have to do it? I'll just do it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Last meeting, we ended on our discussion of Article 3, Town Manager, Section 2, paragraph number 6. We're going to begin there. And this section is regarding powers and duties of the town manager. And number 6 states, shall attend all meetings of the town council unless excused, comma, except meetings at which the town manager's performance is being considered, and shall have a voice but no vote in all of its deliberations. Comments, discussion? I have a question for Bill. Am I reading this correctly? Town manager has to go to all meetings to the town council unless excused, and accept meetings at which the town manager's performance is being considered. Is that saying that the town manager doesn't have to be at that particular meeting?
No, because I think it's reading of unless excused, comma, if she's, if the town manager is excused, they can be excused at any meeting except when they're being evaluated.
Okay.
That's the way I'm reading it.
Everyone reading it that way?
That was the intent when we wrote the charter.
Okay, all right, as long as you're reading it that way. And any other, yes, Bill?
Larry, I have no question on number 6, but we did get an email, or you got an email from one of the town councilors. I think
sir.
we should at least, as a committee, respond that we did receive it, and then maybe give you, the chairman, the direction to either email or talk to the town councilor that we did in fact get it, but what our direction will be.
Sure.
I think we owe that.
Okay,
to the
so
town
did
council.
everyone get the letter I forwarded that I
Yep.
received on Friday?
Yes.
Any comments, questions, discussion? Yes.
So I guess
Andy?
from what he was saying, he was asking us not to delay talking about some of these items until later in the process, but just handle their comments as they came up in our weekly meetings.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Correct.
yes, Michael.
I would just want to make a point of information, and maybe you can clarify this, that the individual that spoke happens to sit on the town council, but the letter actually comes from him in the capacity more so of a resident.
Thank you, Michael. Phil, you had your hand?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about it briefly without taking up a lot of time. This issue was brought to us before. We discussed it as a committee and we decided to go in a different direction than what was requested by this gentleman. And I think that although he has some valid points, I think our direction is different than his, and that hopefully he respects where we're coming from, because I think we're coming from the best interest of the town. I mean, I don't think anybody has a personal agenda here of trying to either eliminate or stop someone from having a voice in this process. So I think we should at least respond to him and let him know we're aware of his concerns, but we just feel like we should be going in a different direction, respectfully.
Don't
That's
notice.
my thoughts.
Two things. Unless otherwise received, I believe that we should respond or take all comments from individuals. We have not received anything from a town board, commission, a committee, entity. All the comments we've received, I view as individuals, rather than coming forward from a committee. And secondly, one of the reasons we originally discussed was during this whole process, we may get more comments from the public, even on items we've already discussed. So I thought that we had envisioned getting all of those comments and suggestions in, and then at the end, when we've concluded our portion, go back and review all those that we've received up until that time. Well, hearing or seeing no change of ways, I will respond that we've discussed it once. We take under advisement his suggestion, and we will continue in the path that we had chosen before. Yes, Bill.
The only comment I'm going to make is, and this is, I think, was our intent, that as we go through these articles, it may generate questions. I think you may have said something along those lines, Larry. And we may get more correspondence from everybody across the board when we start hitting certain sections here.
Yep.
So I agree with the direction we're going in, and I agree with the premise of responding in the way you've kind of dialogued it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think Phil makes a valid point there. As we go along, we get more comments on a particular article. We could wind up revisiting something 3, 4 times.
That's correct.
Right.
Okay. So going back to number 6 then, I presume there's no action that we need, no one wants to take on that one. And seeing none, we'll move on to number 7. And number 7, shall keep full and complete records of his or her office and shall render as often as may be required by the town council, comma, but not less than once in each year, comma, a full report of all operations during the period reported on, comma, which report shall be made available to the public. Comments, discussion?
I have a,
Yes, Jeff.
yeah, it just says made available to the public, but it doesn't state how. Will it be by request, or will it be, I'm assuming this is referring to the annual town report. And I'm just wondering if we should add, how the public can get this. And maybe with the light of the new media, at least post it on the town website so anybody could access it.
Pardon my ignorance, Michael, I guess this is for you. Do we still have an annual town report? Remember those spiral bound books every year and reports from every board and commission and committee? Well, Jeannie would know.
We have up to date, but I'll defer to Janie as well.
Yeah, we do. We've got the spiral books. In general, before COVID, they'd be in a stack in the town manager's office, I believe free to the public. And from 2010 to 2018, they're on the website. And 2018 is the latest because it was kind of behind a little
Okay.
bit. So they've been on the website and they're usually available to the public when the public comes into the town manager's office.
So the public could either come into your office or they could go online for prior to 2018 and prior after 2010.
Right.
Okay. Jeff, does that help?
Yeah, the reason I'm saying is I've heard of instances of people gone into town hall to pick up a paper copy, and they said, well, we only printed so many and they're no longer available. So I didn't know if that would be an issue going forward. And
That was always the case. Even the selectmen before were cheapskates, and we didn't print up thousands of them. We made some available. We made some available in the library, and I don't know. We had online. We didn't have a website then.
Yeah.
We never printed up a lot, and we never gave out more than, we never gave out the total we had ordered. So I understand your concern. I guess with it being online, it's easy to access than it was before. But unfortunately, there wasn't the demand for it that one might think.
because I, dating myself, I know years ago they used to mail one to every residence, but I guess those days are gone.
Yeah, yeah, they are.
So, Jeannie, is there a town manager's report in every annual report?
No, there's a town manager report that's given either written or verbally or both at a town council meeting, every town council meeting. So that's right, Mike. I mean, we just decided probably to do that orally and have nothing written because it's outdated by the time, from the time it gets to the council, from the time that she's reporting at the actual meeting.
That was a change that I orchestrated because obviously it's very time consuming to sit down and write out a town manager's report. So my suggestion was if it was done in bullet points, that the information would be much more updated, as Jeannie mentioned, because if she's writing this report on a Wednesday or Thursday, a lot can happen between the council meeting at 6 p.m. on a Tuesday night. So it seems to be working very well.
Yeah. And the previous town manager did put them on the website, every one on the website, but.
And they are taped for anybody that wants to see it. I mean, if they watch the meeting, they're seeing it live anyway. So.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. I guess my question was, every department head puts in an annual report for the annual town report. Does the town manager do the same for themselves?
I'm looking, I believe so.
Okay.
All right, shall we move on to the next one and come back when we know the answer?
Yeah.
Sure. So number 8, shall keep the town council fully advised as to the needs of the town and shall recommend to the town council for adoption such measures requiring action by them as he or she may deem necessary or expedient. Comments, discussion? Seeing none, no action on that. Number 9, shall have full jurisdiction over the rental and use of all town facilities. The town manager shall be responsible for the maintenance and repair of the facilities placed under his or her control by this charter, by bylaw, by vote of the town council or otherwise. Questions, comments? So, Bill, technically, and I'm thinking back to my history, even the school department buildings are technically under the jurisdiction now of the town manager before the Board of Selectmen.
Yes,
But you still have your separate revolving account for rentals under the
Yes.
school committee?
yeah, because that's under a different chapter of MGL.
So in theory, the town manager will delegate that right to the school committee to rent out any facilities within their authority, and then have the revolving account for the rentals.
Correct.
Seeing no discussion or suggestions on that, I'll presume no action. Number 10, shall keep a full and complete inventory of all property of the town, comma, both real and personal. Comments, suggestions?
Where would that be found?
Should be found in the town report, the annual report.
I don't know. I'm thinking, go ahead, Bill.
No, I wasn't.
I don't recall it being in the town report. I think it was,
May that
used to
be.
be separate and distinct, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Janie?
First of all, there's no statement or mission from the town manager in the town report.
Okay.
That's something that we could start. I think it should be. And I thought at one time, Bill, when we were on the, doing the general code stuff, going through the bylaws, does accounting keep track of the inventory? I don't know why I'm thinking that.
We batted that one around, and I thought
Yeah.
we gave it to the town manager,
Okay.
because the town manager is responsible for all rental property under their jurisdiction
Mhm. And town use of town property.
and use of town property. So I thought we gave the inventory to the town manager as well. Well, that was a lengthy discussion,
Mm-hmm.
but I seem to recall that we gave everything to the town manager.
Jeannie, can we ask you to look into that for the next meeting?
Sure, I was gonna say I could look into both numbers 7 and 10. But we do have some already that we're tabling to talk to Mary about anyway. So which direction do you want? I'd be happy to do that, but I don't know, because there's some questions you wanted to ask Mary about the town manager. Number 3, I think, was a question you had tabled for her.
Yeah, but that one was one we're gonna speak to her in person.
Okay,
Or via Zoom.
so number
But-
7 and
Number 10,
10. I
whether
will-
whether they're done and where they appear.
Okay, I'll be happy to do that.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Number 11, may authorize any subordinate officer or employee to exercise any power or perform any function which the town manager is authorized to exercise or perform with the exception of discharge of employees, semicolon, provided, comma, however, comma, all acts performed under any such delegation shall be deemed to be the acts of the town manager, comma, unless otherwise limited by this charter. Period. Comments, question? Seeing and hearing none. No action on 11.
Rich, got some tomatoes, the little tomatoes. They were at the Cape.
Yeah, I knew that.
Number 12, shall execute contracts, comma, unless otherwise as prescribed by bylaw period. Appropriations required by such contracts shall be subject to a vote of the town council. Questions, comments? Okay. No action on 12. "13, shall be responsible for the negotiation of all contracts with town employees over wages and other terms and conditions of employment, period. The town manager may employ special counsel to assist in the performance of these duties, period. Appropriations required by such contracts shall be subject to a vote of the town council, period. Questions, comments?
I have a
Yes,
question. Where does our human resources department figure into all this?
Michael? Anyone who knows the answer?
What was the question again? I got distracted for a moment.
Question again, please?
It says, shall be responsible for negotiation of all contracts with town employees over wages and other terms and conditions of employment. I just want to know, where does the human resources department factor into this whole scheme of things?
My first comment would probably be if there was a problem between the employee and maybe interpretation of what's expected. You intervene with the union if the union becomes involved.
I think Jeff's looking beforehand when you're negotiating a contract that's up for renewal, over, is there going to be a salary increase or other changes of employment? How does human resources, if at all, get involved? Is that the question, Jeff?
Yes.
The only way we would know that is ask the town manager when she appears here. How does that work? I would presume, but you know what happens when you presume, that you would get the human resources involved on many questions of that, but I don't know for fact.
Okay.
Yes, Bill?
I'm not sure that human resources should be involved in contract negotiations. Maybe on a you know, if there are questions, yeah, but not specifically to the negotiations themselves.
So shall we delay this till we ask Mary that directly?
I would, yes.
Jeff, is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just trying to figure out what role the human relations figures into employment. Is it just a complaint department? Or is it a part of the hiring process?
I've seen it be part of the hiring process in the past.
And the way I see human resources is a lot of times they're the ones that are actually doing the solicitation and so forth. And then, the final appointment, maybe by the department head or the town manager or whatever. But I just don't know how it works here with the town. And what role human resources actually plays. Is it just a liaison between the employee, or is it take on a more significant role?
Okay. All right, we'll move on to number 14 then.
Jeannie has a,
Oh, Janie, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So the last sentence in 13 is exactly the last sentence in number 12. Is there a reason why those are repeated?
I don't know why we inserted, but that would be under
Different
the law
topics.
anyway. You can't fund a contract unless you have an appropriation.
Right, so it's in both places, the exact same verbiage. I don't know. if it's
It
needed.
doesn't add or remove anything it's the law would require.
Okay,
In fact, there's another section in here, Bill, that a town board or committee can't authorize expenditures for money they don't have. But that's repeating the law anyway. Number 14, shall be responsible for purchasing all supplies, comma, materials, comma, services, and equipment, comma, for all departments and activities of the town, comma, and for executing procurement contracts, comma, except for the school department, comma, unless otherwise specifically requested by the school committee. Comments, questions? Seeing and hearing none, no action on that.
A quick question, Larry.
Yes, Bill.
Did we incorporate the school committee in the town in the buying power so that we're buying in bulk instead of individually? Is that something that was done that I remember?
Yes, you remember correctly. Not only was that being done in bulk, on the town side, part of like the regional selectmen's meetings led to the creation of the health trust, which bought to a few towns health insurance.
Scannick Valley.
That's a lifetime ago. I don't know where, I presume that's still, I know the health insurance is still a cooperative effort among towns. Any other purchases, et cetera, whether it be the town or the school, I don't know the answer to that, whether that continues.
There is cooperative purchasing, bulk purchasing through the Lower Pioneer Valley Educational Collaborative for the fuel for the entire town, for the oil for the entire town. All of that goes through the LPVEC, and they do it for a number of towns, and we're part of that. And that's all managed by the town manager and DPW, and we play a small role in that, but not a huge role. But that's a good example of the cooperative purchasing.
Well, I was thinking along the lines, Bill, what if about supplies? Just say paper. Is the town manager?
The superintendent will reach out and say, hey, we're doing a paper order. Does anybody else want to jump on board? There is that communication back and forth.
Okay, I just didn't know if it was under the umbrella of the town manager to go forward and talk to the school and say, hey, we're buying, whatever. We want to see if you want to get in on it.
I don't think there's anything in writing that forces that to happen, but I do know it happens.
Oh, okay. All right.
Because, it goes back to it's only one pot of money. Let's be careful how we spend it.
Yeah. Okay.
Number 15, shall assure that all of the provisions of the general laws, comma, of the charter and votes of the town council, which require enforcement or action by the town manager or employees subject to the town manager's direction and supervision, are faithfully carried out. Okay, I'm looking at the grammar. And this is a place where we capitalize charter, correct, Jeannie?
I'm making notes throughout. I just don't want to bog down discussion with those little things, so.
Okay. Any comments or discussion on this? Seeing and hearing none, no action. Number 16, shall prepare and revise as necessary, comma, subject to civil service requirements where applicable, comma, a personnel management plan, comma, I'm sorry, is that a comma?
Yeah, it's a comma.
Which shall include recruitment procedures, comma, job descriptions, comma, wage and salary schedules, comma, benefits administration, comma, workplace safety requirements, comma, and such other features as the town manager shall determine, comma, for all departments established by this charter, comma, administrative code or town bylaw, comma, except school department employees unless requested by the school committee, period. Such plan after submission to the town council shall become effective unless rejected by a majority of town council members within 45 days or at the next regular town council meeting, comma, whichever is later. Period. The town council may vote only to approve or disapprove the plan, comma, and no vote to amend or alter it shall be deemed in order. Questions, discussion?
Is this an employee handbook? Is that what they're talking about?
I would,
Like it to me.
no, I think that's different.
Yeah, I agree, it's different. That,
I think employee handbook is something after an employee gets hired, what they can look to on different issues.
Mhm.
This almost looks to be like the procedures of how you hire, how you recruit, and other issues.
yeah, because it won't get up, it'll get updated when you're getting ready to post a job. That's what this is describing.
Yeah.
Larry, this is if I
This-
could,
yeah.
this is another thing that we discussed before pertaining to reject versus approve.
Right. And
Is
I'm
that
trying-
something that we should wait for Mary and talk
Well,
about
I
that?
wanted to see, and that was on the appointment of police chief, fire chief. And I'm trying to,
We were talking about all department heads.
yeah, I want to see if that, oh, here it is. I point out a difference here. In the section which was Article 3, Town Manager, Section 2, paragraph number 1, the 45 days, the rejection had to take place within 45 days of the town manager's presentation or the next regular town council meeting, whichever came first. In number 15, it's whichever comes later.
Can't hear you because you were.
All right,
when you were-
paragraph number 15 has similar wording, but it says whichever is later. And we had discussed in the prior one about the police chief, fire chief, et cetera, rejection, that a regular meeting could happen within 5 days of submission. Whereas this one, it would have to be at least 45 days, if I'm reading it correctly.
It says within 45 days.
No, but see the phrase at the end which says whichever is later?
Yeah.
That differs with the prior section on rejection of a police chief, fire chief appointment, which says whichever is earlier. Did everyone follow that?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I point this out because we were going to on the section about the rejection issue, we were going to, was it our call, we wanted to think about it more or speak to Mary?
Speak
Or
to
wait
Mary.
till
Mary.
Speak to Mary about it.
Yeah.
Now we have a conflict in those two 45-day issues.
Mhm.
If
And
we're
I'm
gonna
not
be,
sure how that happened,
I don't know either.
you know?
It must have been those guys on the original commission.
It must have been, huh?
Yeah, must have been a late night those meetings went for hours, people, just so you know.
Oh, they sure did.
Well, I would suggest, well, before we do that suggestion, is there any other discussion or comments on this particular section?
Just one thing, it seems to me that this could apply to this paragraph as well as the last several ones. Even though it specifically says this is the responsibility of the town manager, it's silent when it comes to saying whether or not the town manager can delegate or assign some of these tasks to the appropriate people, which I'm sure that they do from time to time. You know, going back to what, Jeff asked about HR, what does HR do with the contracts and the negotiation? They may very well say to the HR, look, I need you to do this, this, and this in regard here, and you could apply that to many of them. Would that be reasonable to assume?
I don't know what's reasonable. Yes, Bill.
To Andy's point, this is the HR department. The town manager would go to the HR department and say, prepare the following to get ready to post for a position. That's the way I'm reading it. This sounds like the HR function in either a negotiation or a hire.
But it's also procedures, administration, requirements. That's why I thought it run like a handbook. And I know that the first HR director was working on that and it never happened. And then I think it's, now that we have an HR person, I think she's working on it. But this just seems like a huge task. I don't even know, has it been done? Mike, do you know anything about this?
Well, we started touching on that. We had an HR person for only a short period of time. So that was a hole in the system that we all recognized. And once our new town manager came on, our HR person we had a part-time HR person. So there's a lot of catching up to do, and we're gaining on it. But that's why there's some differences and unanswered questions. But I think Mary can give us the direction going forward and where we are presently.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll ask her that question when the time comes.
Okay, so when we meet, this is another section to talk about. The other one for you to think about is which is better? When it says whichever is later, the 45 days or earlier. I would suggest to think about that. Probably the more prudent one is whichever is later. Because otherwise you could have a very quick period where you'd have to either, if you're going to stick with that very short period of town council rejection. But if you have whichever is later, I think it's going to take longer and therefore it's not going to be as dangerous. Yes, Jeannie.
Well, I was thinking that makes sense for this, what I'll call number 16. It's such a huge task. Whichever is later makes more sense, like you say, but then when you look at number 1 with the appointments, maybe whichever comes first is more prudent in that instance. Maybe
Say that again. Say that one more time.
So whichever is later seems a better choice in number 16 when you're talking about having the council review this huge plan, okay? But in number 1, when you're talking about appointments, maybe it makes more sense to have whichever comes first because you would need I would think, a quicker decision for this. Maybe that's why it's the difference in verbiage between the two.
That sounds more logical to me.
Good points, yeah.
That makes sense.
Because there's apples and oranges, so you want to act quicker on an appointment and maybe take more time with the bigger task. It's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, but under number 1, in theory, I think the way it's written, that the town manager, the way it's written, could appoint someone to be police chief on a Wednesday, and there's a town council meeting the following Tuesday. And that would require them to make, if they're going to reject, by that Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't give much time.
Right.
So all I'm saying is just think about those. I know Jeff and others brought up the issue of whether we should expand rejection, make it an approval, etc. But here's another thing to think about: the time span when anything has to be decided. Okay, so we're going to leave that for Mary when we speak with her. Number 17, may at any time inquire into the conduct of any employee or department, comma, board, comma, committee, or commission under his or her control. I hear silence. I'll assume that's no action on that. Number 18, shall perform such other functions as may from time to time be assigned to the office of town manager by town council, comma, bylaw, or as stipulated in any employment agreement. Silence again, no action. Number 19, shall advertise all vacancies on town boards and committees in a local newspaper, comma, on the town bulletin board, comma, and on the town's website or other official online repository of municipal information, comma, whether on the internet or access through another comparable technology, comma, and shall actively recruit candidates for all appointments to be made by either the town manager or the town council, period. Just one footnote. I saw LCAT this week. There was a notice of vacancy on conservation, Jeff, and there was a slight blurb on what conservation does.
I know, that was because after a long period of nothing, I wrote an ad which I presented to Tom Florence back in that time frame. And then Don was kind enough to place this on LCAT back at that time.
Okay, good job.
But we still have a vacancy.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not going to apply.
No.
Yes, Bill.
Okay, on Facebook today, on the Town of East Long Meadows Facebook page, there was the list of all vacancies for commissions and committees. So there are vacancies. There's like, I saw the conservation. There's one on housing authority. There's 2 on community preservation. So there are a number of vacancies, and they are doing advertising to try and fill them.
They're also on the website, on the news flash front page.
Okay. So I think the word is out. My point is the word is out there that they're, the town's looking for people.
Yeah. Well, some of my comments were based on going back a year ago when we were trying to get things done, and we had 2 vacancies at that time. And, it took a few months, and then all we got was a 2-line sentence in the reminder, which to me is kind of pointless. There's a vacancy. If you're interested, apply. Doesn't tell you anything about what the board or commission does, and I also put in the ad that I wrote that, training is available at no cost to the interested party if they're really interested in coming on board. I mean, we had Francis found this high school girl last year. Unfortunately, she was a senior and she graduated, but she was very interested in conservation, and actually we brought her on as an associate member, which was great. And, you know, if there's any, I mean, if there's no restriction on age for being on the Conservation Commission, you know, it would be great to have some young people, if they're interested, you know, to come on.
Question for Jeannie.
Yes, Phil.
Jeannie, or Jeannie, in order to be on a board, do you have to be a town resident?
I don't believe so.
Conservation, no.
CPC, I don't think so either.
No, I don't believe so.
Oh, really? So we could have people outside of town be on the boards?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
You would hope you
Well,
would
the-
fill in with town residents who have a
Yeah.
vested interest. It could be kind of dangerous to get people from various towns. I mean, it'd be real easy to change
Yeah.
things around over the
Yeah,
course
that's
of
why I
time.
was thinking it's unusual to have that.
I'm thinking back, a past police chief brought an action, I don't know, it was the Attorney General's office, against a then current planning board member then being elected, who he claimed was not a resident of town. And it never went that far, but I don't know if there's different rules on elected offices as opposed to appointed.
Yeah, I think elected, you have to be a town resident.
Jeannie, that's a Jeannie question.
What's that, elected?
Yeah,
I would think for an elected position, so if town clerk was elected, I'd have to live in town. Appointed,
Right.
I don't have to. I'm just looking to see if it's on the website.
my personal opinion is that, and I know I get everybody's difficulty filling positions, but I think all these boards and commissions in this town should be manned by town residents, not somebody from Springfield or Hamden or, you know, whatever. That's my opinion.
And I agree with that.
This has
Because
come up
there's certain
before,
danger.
but you could have a long, you know, a long-standing resident that moves out of town for some reason, that still has interest in the town and want to serve on a board. I mean, there's other times where it would make sense to have, especially if you're looking for someone, if you have a vacancy.
Well, you have to understand one thing about conservation. It's federally mandated that every town and city or whatever will have a conservation commission. And it falls on, you know, the mayor, town manager, whatever, to appoint people to the commission.
Does it specifically say residents, Jeff?
No, there's no resident requirement mentioned anywhere.
And you'd want a certain level of expertise too, I would think, on that commission.
You preferably, if you can find somebody that has some expertise, yes.
Right.
But the other side is there is all kinds of free training available. MACC has webinars all the time. They have spring and fall conferences. And the funding for all that is paid for out of conservation funds. So it actually, it doesn't cost whoever attends anything. And there's all kinds of books that are available, and all the cost of everything is borne by the Conservation Commission.
I'd be very surprised if we're allowed, whether it be by law, state law, to appoint, and whether we want to appoint non-citizens / non-residents of town to appointed boards.
I agree with that, but I think it should be stated somewhere.
Yeah.
Was this ever addressed in the charter originally?
No,
No.
no. I mean, we were bogged down with other things, and when this, you know, when,
Yeah.
you know, they would hand us this stuff and it wasn't pertinent at the time because there were so many other things happening around us. So that took priority over, let's figure out how to fill boards and commissions when nobody steps up.
Yeah.
But now that we're talking about it, it probably should be somewhere in the charter that it's town residents. Just my opinion.
How does everyone else feel about that?
Yeah, I agree with Bill. I guess the first choice would always be town residents, but then do you get into a situation where you can't fill it and you're faced with either continuing to try and run the committee with fewer people or putting in someone who's a non-resident, which is better, which is worse?
Yeah, no, I get that piece.
Well, the thing is, if, to some extent, I can see it, but if you get a very qualified person and they may live in a neighboring town or city and you can't fill it with a resident, are you going to disqualify them because they don't live in town when you need to get that vacancy filled? Especially if you're faced with possibly not even having a quorum, so you can't hold meetings.
Yeah, that's what my point was.
Also, should this be in the bylaws? Because I'm looking through the draft of general codes code for the town, and there's a whole section on multi-member bodies. And that's all the boards and commissions. So each one has the membership, terms, appointment, purpose, duties. So I wonder if that's the part where you should say they need to be a resident of the town.
Yeah, I'm not saying it necessarily needs to be in the charter. I just think it needs to be somewhere.
Well, here's another question. What happens if you get 2 or 3 applications and one's from out of town and one's from in town, and out of town is more qualified than in town? Now who makes that decision?
I think that's easy. I think in town gets preference.
Yeah,
Have we ever made that, Jeannie, do you know if we've ever made an appointment to a town appointed board or committee who is a non-resident?
I don't remember that, but I do remember a long-serving member of a certain commission was moving out of town and the question came up, and she could have still retained her seat even though she moved out of town. And they said that a non-resident could be on a appointed board or commission.
Who made that decision, Jeannie?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Was it selectmen, town council?
Oh, it wasn't selectmen, or it could have been. I don't know. I think because it's missing, maybe that's a good reason where it's missing. It doesn't say either one way or the other.
Oh.
Bill, did we discuss this at all?
I don't think so. I don't
Whose
recall.
decision is it?
What's that?
Whose decision is it? Is the town manager's decision? The
Well, the way, if
resident
it's
requirement?
silent, I don't know if any law binds us to have an in-town resident.
Mhm.
No, I don't think there's anything out there. We never discussed it on the, when we wrote this thing. Because I don't think it was ever even thought about.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, let's do this, people. This is an important issue, whether we, one, put anything in the charter about it, and whether we recommend binding that it has to be a town resident. I'm going to ask you to sleep on this till next meeting and think about that. Go ahead, Jeff.
But if you're going that far, then doesn't that apply to the town manager too?
Say that again?
If you're going to go that far, then wouldn't that also apply to the town manager too?
Well, you could use the same argument. Yes, absolutely.
But in the charter, it indicates that the town council has a right to change that.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Right. But then you could use that same argument for a board or commission.
You could,
Yeah.
you could.
But as far as the conservation laws go, there's no specified residency requirement.
I'd be interested to see what other communities do, just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
Is that something, do you have any kind of networking, Jeannie, with other
Yeah,
towns that you
sure.
can find out?
I could do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'd be interested in what that was.
Okay, we're about out of time.
Michael had his hand up real quick. I just want to hear what he has to say.
Oh, Michael, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'll be quick. I've attended many conservation commission meetings outside the community, and generally, I think we probably all agree that these are positions that nobody's really compensated for. So it's somebody that wants to generally give back to a community. And if you're giving back to a community, you probably, well, 99% of the time would want to reside in that community. So I have been through, like I said, numerous boards through numerous communities and have paid attention to the makeup of those boards, and they have been residents. Whether there's anything in writing or not, I don't know. But like you said, this is an important decision, and it's something to table for a future meeting.
Yes, Jeannie.
Oh, I was waving goodbye to Peter. He's letting me know he's leaving the office.
We couldn't see him.
Sorry.
Okay. All right. If there's nothing else, I'm sorry,
Larry.
Philip?
Can we just finish 20? So next time we can start with section 3 and we'll be all done with section 2.
Okay,
It won't take too long for 20.
okay, I'm reading. May, comma, with the approval of the town council, comma, establish, comma, reorganize, comma, consolidate, or dissolve any department, board, committee, comma, commission, or office, comma, as provided in Article 5.
Oh, you thought that was going to be quick.
Nope.
Seems to me that's one we ought to come back to after we cover Article 5.
You got it. What
Yeah.
do you think, Phil?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, there is a procedure there, if I recall.
Yeah, I just read in Article 5. Yeah, there is.
Yeah, and yes, you're right. All right, so next meeting would be October. Dr. Mackey?
October 6th, Tuesday, October 6th, 4:30 PM.
All right, sir. Any problems, anyone?
Not at the moment.
Nope.
Okay,
I'll also let you know, and Jeannie is aware, so pretty much at this point, you can use the same link that you have over and over again.
okay,
I'm going to make a practice of resending those links out or those invites out the day of the meeting. But if I forget or you don't see that it pops up, at this point, everybody on every board should be able to get into their meeting by clicking on an existing invite. All right.
Don, do I still need a new one to post the meeting? Or do I use the same one?
If it's the same, if it's just posting a new webinar of an existing board, then I still need to know that you need to post it.
Okay,
Right, I'll send it. But
Okay.
basically, all I do is open up the meeting, change the date, and resend the links.
okay,
But if you don't get it, you can, once I change the date on the meeting, you can use that old invite. Will get you into that new date. That's all. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yep.
So I know it's been confusing. Larry called me earlier because I knew I resent the meeting, but he wasn't on the list. So anyway, we'll get there.
good.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So
So
moved.
moved.
It's made by Jeff, seconded by Bill. Phil Adams,
Yes.
Larry Levine, yes. William Fonseca,
Yes.
Andy Frazier,
Yes.
Jeffrey Bosworth,
Yes.
and thank you, everyone. Be safe. Have a good week.
thank you.
Okay, see ya.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.